This week's Piltch Point with Avram Piltch is proudly powered by PureVPN. If you're looking to obfuscate your internet browsing from your ISP, from Google, from Facebook, from a number of other companies, a VPN's a great way to do that. And right now, they've got PureVPN has got some pretty great deals with up to 70% off, which is essentially $3.33 a month if you do a 2-year plan, which is a really great deal. And in addition to hiding your browsing history, you also have the ability to report that you're somewhere else. So when you're out of the country or even out of state, if you want to watch content from a streaming service back where you live, you can still say you're there and it will continue to work. And if you want to find out about all of the features that they offer and get this great deal, you can go to pilchpoint.live/PureVPN. All right, Avram. What have you got for us this week?
So I wanted to talk about upgrading your PC. This week we put up a really helpful story from our new Tom's Hardware graphics editor, Jared Walton, who is an incredible expert on graphics cards, and his story is about finding out what graphics cards are compatible with your computer, because some people may be wondering, if I have a computer that's a desktop that's a little bit older, maybe 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, can I buy a new graphics card and put it in? And so I wanted to talk about that briefly, and then, not just your graphics card, but really, how do you know whether your computer is upgradable and whether it's worth your time and money to upgrade it? So the good news about graphics cards is that if you have almost any desktop that was made in the last 10 years or so, you probably have your motherboard almost certainly has PCIe slots on it, PCI Express slots. And if you have a PCIe X16 slot, like most of them would have, then you can probably use even today's most cutting-edge graphics cards. Now, there's several caveats with that. One is that, do you have enough horizontal space to put the graphics card in, or is it going to knock into something and be blocked? Two, do you have free PCIe X16 slot? Do you have enough power supply? Do you have a good enough power supply? Most modern day graphics cards require at least a power supply with at least an 8-pin, a special 8-pin connector, or an 8-pin and a 6, or an 8+6-pin connector for the higher end stuff. That's like 2070, RTX 2070 and higher, or AMD RX 5700 and higher. Or if you are getting like the top of the line RTX 2080, you need a dual 8-pin power supply. And your power supply, probably you'll want to be, if you're using a modern graphics card, at least 500 watts. But you could get away with maybe a 450, 350 if you're getting a really low-end graphics card like the GTX 1650. Now, the question though, forget even whether those model numbers I said to you make sense, is, do you actually get a benefit from upgrading? And that's a question that you can ask globally, not just about your graphics card, but about upgrading your RAM, upgrading your CPU, upgrading your power supply, upgrading your storage. If your computer really is this old, a new component will stick out like a sore thumb. You're gonna get some brand new wheels to put on your old car. It's not going to go much faster. right? If your CPU is slow, a faster graphics card will help you play games, but the CPU is now going to be the bottleneck. Um, so you really before you make an upgrade to your system, any kind of major upgrade, you have to think, well, is the rest of my system going to now not work so well with this new component? Maybe it's compatible and it will run, but maybe it's not worth the money. Like if you've got a if you've got an older CPU that's maybe more than 3 4 years old and you're wanting to buy the latest and greatest graphics card, uh, you probably, depending on how good of a CPU it is, you probably shouldn't do that. If you want to upgrade your graphics at all, you should probably go for a low end card because you don't want to put a lot of money into something that you're not going to get the performance out of. Or better yet, ba- balance out your money and just spend and buy a new motherboard, CPU, and graphics card. So a lot of times when we're talking about upgrades, people say, I just want to upgrade this one component and or they're buying a computer now with the hope that they're going to upgrade it later. But a lot of the time, once you change one thing, it kind of requires you to change a bunch of other things. Like for example, let's say you have a computer that was taking, uh, you know, older RAM, like DDR3 RAM, and now you're on DDR4, and you know now you want to buy new RAM. Oh, but now you have to upgrade the motherboard to support the new RAM. And oh, your CPU doesn't fit in a new motherboard, so you need a new CPU. So I guess what I'm saying is you really have to look when you're upgrading, is this something that is a discrete upgrade where I can just get some extra bang for my buck out of it? Or is it going to be the beginning of a new computer? Um, the one thing that you can you can almost always upgrade with some confidence is your storage. You know, if you want to, most computers in the last 10 years have SATA for their connecting to a hard drive or an SSD. So you can get a SATA SSD, a 2.5-inch SATA SSD, put it in there, and you can get good performance, particularly if you're upgrading over a hard drive. What you can't do, of course, is unless your motherboard is new enough to support it, get the fastest SSDs, which are now all M2 NVMe type SSDs on a chip that you need a slot on your motherboard to support. So, although you could get an expansion card to run it, but again, now you're buying more stuff. So, I really encourage folks to check out our article on what graphics cards are compatible with my PC to learn more about this. But my advice is, if you're looking to do an upgrade, make sure that what you're getting not only is capable of working with your computer, but is capable of giving you the benefits that you spent the money for with your computer. If you buy a card that can support 4K gaming and costs you $700, but you're putting it into a 5-year-old computer with a 5-year-old processor, well, you're probably not going to be able to play 4K games on it because the processor and maybe the RAM aren't going to be fast enough to keep up with that graphics card.
And all of that makes total sense, and in fact applies even here in our studio. We've talked over the last, I don't know, 6 months or so that we've been looking to upgrade the broadcast computer in here, and we haven't done it in piecemeal because upgrading one bit isn't going to give us enough benefit to justify the cost, and whatever we did upgrade probably wouldn't transfer to a full system upgrade anyway, so it would be a money thrown at nothing, for a temporary upgrade, and that just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I mean, listen, people love to upgrade. Um, I They love to rebuild their computers. I used to rebuild my desktop like every 3 years, and I had but the one piece that was always the same is the least expensive piece, which is the case. Well, I wouldn't say it's the least expensive, but depending on which one you got, but you can get a decent case for $50 to $100,
Mm-hmm.
right? A great case for $150. So the that's the only piece that can realistically stay with you over generations. Yeah, if you're upgrading your CPU every year or something, then maybe you can pop it into the same motherboard that you had. But for most people who can't afford to be doing upgrades every year, if you're doing upgrades every 3 to 5 years, you're probably going to find that the other components that you have also need to be upgraded. Uh, and what you thought was an upgrade is really a new computer. Now, in the case of laptops, I'll just say this real quick. Obviously, there's only two kinds of upgrades you can do to a laptop, if at all, and those are upgrading the storage and upgrading the RAM. And in those cases, I mean, well, the only other alternative is to buy a new computer. So, uh, those can be quite beneficial if you're using a laptop and it doesn't have enough storage. SSDs are much cheaper now than they were a couple of years ago. If you're using one that doesn't have enough RAM and the RAM is upgradable, it might be worth your money to go up as high as you can to 12 or 16 gigabytes of RAM. Whatever you can support. Um, so, but you got to be cognizant of, is this really going to solve the problem that I'm trying to solve? Is the problem that I want to play high-end games? I might need a new computer.
Absolutely. And you said that you've got an article about this?
Yes. So come to the tomshardware.com homepage and you can see under the graphics section what graphics cards are compatible with my PC.
Well, fantastic. Just for just for fun, I'm gonna go look and compare a couple of the systems that I've got around just to see what graphics cards are compatible, because it's gonna either make me sad or make me laugh with how old some of my machines are.
The answer is most of them will work, but you won't necessarily get the performance that you're looking for.
Sure. Well, as always, Avram, I appreciate you bringing this to us, because you keep on top of stuff that I simply don't have the bandwidth to do. So, as always, thank you.